Our guest is here. She is the Principal Secretary for the MSMEs, Susan Mang'eni. Good morning.
Morning.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Not bad.
We had said you were on the way, but then you got some traffic on the expressway.
There was a challenge somewhere.
There was a challenge somewhere.
To expressway. Obviously, there shouldn't be traffic at expressway, but I think there is a system H.
Okay.
Between you're exiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good that you're here already. We're going to have conversations about your State Department, what you're doing for MSMEs particularly. I mean, in these economic times, everybody is trying to run a small business to make money so that they can support their family. Okay? What is the State Department doing? City will welcome you with the day's proverb. This week, the proverbs are from
Swatini. It is spelled Swatini, but it is actually pronounced Swatini.
Swatini.
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting, isn't it?
And they have a new ambassador to Kenya.
They actually have a new ambassador, believe it or not. Mahlaba Mamba. The gentleman, His Excellency, the ambassador, handed his credentials to President William Ruto at State House yesterday. Yes.
Karibu sana, Bwana Mamba.
Yes. I wonder whether Mamba means the same thing as it does here. The proverb: a rich widow weeps with one eye and laughs with the other.
A rich widow weeps with one eye and laughs with the other. She can see.
Yeah, I
She gets it. P.S. Do you get it?
A rich widow.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
What's your interpretation of it?
Even from the widow's perspective, if you are so sure about your future, you will not have much stress. You say, okay, fine, it's God. It's God's calling, but at least tomorrow is certain. Tomorrow you're assured. So I think that's how I'm looking at it. And it's a question of now also from what I'm doing in our State Department, in our sector. How are we assuring social security? Do people have the future? If all of us hate the future, nobody will even fear to die today. Yeah, if we are so sure about tomorrow, you won't even, about your children, about your dependents, you're leaving everything for them, you won't struggle. And for people who are politicians, I've walked that path before. So when you go for this funeral, I usually say, the departed soul, that departed body that has left with a certain future, a secure future for the family, will somehow be smiling, very calm in the coffin. But then that one, which has left, so many problems behind, you're not so sure what will happen to your children, to the family behind. You look at that body, is like, they're weeping. Yeah, so I don't know. It's Swatini, I don't know.
No, your interpretation is spot on.
Makes a lot of sense.
It's spot on.
Makes a lot of sense, actually. So it's basically, it's like advising you, make sure you leave a rich widow behind.
Yeah, you must leave wealth for your children. Unfortunately, we are living poverty for our children. That's the inheritance they're taking from us. But Latifa, today's conversation, if you allow me to look at it from the context of women, because tomorrow is International Women's Day.
Yep.
And I would just to appreciate the significance that women, the significant contribution of women in our economy, and why we are so much focused on women. If you're talking about MSME, majority of them are women. These are the people who are struggling every day, and that's I'm happy you brought about the issue about widow. As a child, if you were to be asked today, between dad and mom, who should go first?
Go where?
No, go somewhere.
He knows exactly what you mean.
Yeah, that's the question. Even you, all of us have parents, isn't it? But if at one point you ask between dad and mom, who should exit first, I think most of us will say, okay, dad can exit. Mom can hold on, because we know mom will do everything. Yeah, mom will struggle.
Yeah.
Mom will feed us. Mom will carry us on their backs. You know, mom. You know, today if I give you 100 bob, and this is why do we focus on women? If I give you 100 shilling, and I give your wife 100 bob, and I say, this money you need to fix for us breakfast, lunch, dinner. Do you know your wife will fix
and have change?
For you, you won't.
No, in fact, you will have a drink as you think about it.
Yeah. So women plays a significant.
So the problem is that you are now coming to tell me what I should do with the money. Just give us 100 bob. And then come tomorrow and ask, what did you do with 100 bob?
No. In the context of family, is that enough? You said this is not even enough. Let me have a bottle just to think about what am I going to do this. But your wife will fix it. The children will have breakfast, will have lunch, will have dinner from it, because she also builds on her other social capital that she has. If she doesn't have unga in the house, she'll go to the neighbor, ask for unga. You cannot go to the neighbor. If she doesn't have vegetable, she can go to the neighbor's farm and inama there to get vegetable. Can you do that? If you go there, this is Swatini man the proverb man will tell you you're going to grab his land. So the certain traits and attributes that women have. So what we are doing in our sector is just to leverage on what women already have. And you see now that out of let me put it this way. In this country, we have a workforce of 20 million. 20 million Kenyans are actively looking for a job, or they're employed either formally or they're struggling. But out of informally, so out of those 20 million, only 3.5 million are formally employed. They are salaried, 3.5, either by government, that's in the civil service, or in the private sector. A whopping 16.5 or thereabout have to create their own jobs, have to wake up in the morning, either go to their farm, either go to border, either do whatever they have. They have employed themselves. So majority of them are women who do something in their households, in their farm, just to fix their ends. And why now are we concentrating on that segment? Is because there's no way we are going to grow our economy if we do not economically engage that segment of the population into sustainable economic streams. That's why, as a government first, His Excellency the President decided to have this State Department of MSME, just to think about how do we engage economically people at the bottom of the economic pyramid, who majority are women, by pulling down the barriers in terms of access to finance, enabling them to access sustainable market, building their capacity so that whichever economic engagement they are doing can sustainably drive their livelihood. So that's where we are.
So what have you done so far that is specifically geared towards addressing this and empowering the women?
Good. Number one, even the setting up of Hustler Fund, and I don't want all the questions today to revolve around that.
We give you our word, we will not ask very many questions about the Hustler Fund.
Because they really... So a Hustler Fund as an enabler, 52% today as we speak of the beneficiaries of Hustler Fund are women. In other words, majority of people who are in need of those lower limit loans, the 500, the 1,000, the 3,000, majority of them are women.
What percentage again?
52%.
52%.
52% are women. Then when it comes to, so basically, if we have as per now, if you've grown our portfolio to about 48 billion, you can work out 52% is actually more than between 25 to 26 billion portfolio has gone to women. Then Uwezo Fund, which was started in 2013, over 80% of beneficiaries, and so far we have lent out close to it's about 8.6 billion. So over 80% of the beneficiaries are women again. And youth, and of course you see, majority of our population are young people. So among even those women, we have young women. Why am I talking about Uwezo Fund and Hustler Fund? Because these are two targeted financials interventions that are at the bottom of the economic pyramid, at the grassroots. So majority of people you're likely to find there are these women who are trying to do something. Sometimes they could be doing something. They don't know that this is now their lifeline. But they're just doing like those mamambogas, or someone has planted mongas, takes to the market, a neighbor comes, buys there. But that's how that person is sustaining their livelihood. So now what we're also doing is that we've realized that we need to be intentional. We need to consider those engagement as being now their sustainable jobs. Remember, I've told you we have a challenge of engaging 16.5 million Kenyans, who majority of them are at the bottom of the economic pyramid. So as a sector, we are enterprising their spaces through, be it cultural space, be it religious space. We're organizing them in whichever formation they exist there at the grassroots. And sometimes they don't have to register new groups, for example. We're now working with churches. They have, let's say, these cell groups. Those cell groups is also they meet together and to pray. But also just by meeting together, that social formation can also enable them to do something that can generate income for them. We are also investing heavily in capacity building and like something more of an end-to-end intervention. We are no longer sitting back and saying, what you need to do is to just know how to fish. It's more than knowing how to fish. So other than knowing how to fish, we go to give you fishing net and we go to show you where to fish.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
Are we really helping people by giving them nets? Are we making it possible for them to acquire, buy, purchase, or are we developing a scheme to give? Because if we are giving them, then we may not be making very much progress. We will be entrenching them in a position that many of them are already in, waiting and expecting to be given.
No, we are not giving them. And if you look at my sector, it's about credit. Even the financing we give is a credit.
Yes.
Somebody has to know that there's no business you'll run with grants, with free money. There has to be an effort into it, and you have to cost an effort. So when I talk about, not just training people, teaching people how to fish and providing them with fishing gears. So this fishing gears is a credit in a credit form. And how are we doing it? We aggregate you into groups because we know as an individual, you may not even have capacity even to mobilize supplies, which will enable you capture a sustainable market. So that's why we put them into groups. They guarantee each other. So if, for example, if we were looking at the blue economy, and opportunities which are there. And I'm looking at Port Victoria, the Lake Victoria there. I'm looking at the Indian Ocean, the communities there who derive their livelihood from fishing. They may be lacking fishing gears. They may not even have a boat or fishing nets. But if you identify those fishermen and you put them together, you train them, and you empower them with the fishing, common user facilities, the boats. If someone feels like now in the afternoon, I want to go to fish, comes there, hires the boat, goes and fish, brings back the fish, and maybe can pay off that boat, the boating time, with the fish. I mean, it's the same concept we have our mkokoteni here in towns, in the bus station. Mkokoteni, those pushers, they never own those mkokoteni. They're just there, common user. You have a customer, your work is to look for customer. And then you get a mkokoteni, you agree, You take your customer wherever. After you come back, you pay off something. So that's the kind of concept that we're using. So there is nothing for free, because that level of dependence is very deceptive. Yeah.
Let's take a break.
So.
It's 25 minutes to 8. Susan Mang'eni, the Principal Secretary for MSME Development, is our guest this morning. We're talking about, ahead of Women's Day tomorrow, MSMEs and how the State Department is supporting the small, medium enterprises to thrive, to grow. Many of them, as the PS is telling us, obviously, and we know, are owned by women, are led by women, are managed by women. So what is it that you're doing to support these MSMEs to grow? We'll be back shortly.
Mornings done right.
And we're talking about what the State Department has been doing to support women in enterprise. And you've told us, all right, just looking at the numbers so far, over 26 billion shillings of what has been borrowed from the Hustler Fund has actually been taken by women.
Yes.
The borrowers are women.
Yes.
And mostly they are doing it to run their small businesses.
Yes.
Now, beyond that, beyond just seeing that this is gender female, do we know what kind of businesses they're running? Do we know what impact, for example, you have been able to have as a State Department over the last 2 years on women-led enterprises?
I think the first product, the one we are talking about, the personal loan product, wasn't able to tell, and it's personal even by its definition, because you borrow just the same way people are fleecing, and you may not know what they're fleecing for. But as we upgrade to other products, now we start getting to filter out in terms of getting to understand the regularity of borrowing. What could they be doing? And obviously, we have about 7.8 million Kenyans who borrow regularly. So we've started now querying the data, breaking down the analytics to specifically to help us to understand what could they been doing, and also through other programs that we have, like, for example, Uwezo Fund, because Hustler Fund has reached out to close to 22.5 million Kenyans. So basically, even all these other majority of Kenyans who are also borrowing, these are other facilities where it's properly defined in terms of the project which you want to go. At the point of application, you have to input that. We're able now to ask them, and most of them have also interacted with the Hustler Funds. So whenever I'm going to meet them, they will tell me that, look, we're also borrowing Hustler Fund to top up our business, as in because Uwezo Fund, you'll borrow as a group, but then each member of the group is likely to get a smaller amount of money to invest into their own businesses. So when you need a top up, where you run fast is the Hustler Fund. But also 1 year is not enough to even assess the impact. So part of the work that we are committed to be doing this year is now to filter, like, for example, those 7.8 million Kenyans. We want to study them. We want to understand which sectors are they in. And why that is important is because for us to provide end-to-end intervention, which means we have also to be concerned about the accessibility and availability of the market for their business. We need to understand the nature of their business, the sector in which they are in, whether it's agricultural, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's the normal trade sector. So we are at the point now where we are embarking on that. But again, also, we are hoping this year that we'll be able also to launch other products, especially the SME. Now, the SME is a little bit specific, because now this one, the unique identifier is the business which is
the business
it's
itself.
not the business itself.
But then, PS, the Uwezo Fund, which has been there for over 10 years,
yes,
you already have information. A majority of those that have accessed funds from the Uwezo Fund are women-led enterprises.
Yes.
So can we tell what they've done? Can
most
we tell,
of
for
them
example, that
are in agricultural sector? They are farmers, most of them. Actually, majority of them have ventured into agricultural value chains.
So in the agriculture value chain,
in the agriculture value chain.
not
Yeah.
necessarily farming, but doing
But majority of them actually are farming. They
Right.
borrow for the farm inputs like fertilizers, seeds, and all that.
Okay.
Most of them are there. They're in the agricultural value chain. However, majority of them also own lands because they are there in those villages. But we've realized if you own land, now that becomes your day-to-day job. So how do we make that land throughout the year to be productive? And that's why we are trying to encourage quite a number of them now to invest in farm inputs. How do you invest? To look at farming as a business in
Right.
itself. Yesterday I was in another forum, and a certain gentleman said that, I used to work in the government. I've now retired. I ventured into business. Have also now retired. Now I'm a farmer. I was a bit upset. How are you? But he doesn't know that farming in itself is a business. And I think now that's the notion that you're trying to turn around, because agriculture is the backbone of our economy.
So a lot of
It
them,
is the
these
sector that
borrowers,
will give us jobs.
so a lot of these borrowers, many of the borrowers have been borrowing for farm inputs, to buy feeds, to buy fertilizer, to buy seeds and
Yeah.
such, and to support them in that small farming business. Have we been able to graduate them in any way? Can we
So
say
now-
that because people have had access, the big issue about enterprise in this country is access to finance? Because Uwezo Fund came and provided access to finance, 8.2 billion shillings worth of finance so far in 10 years. Because of this, we have seen many of these borrowers actually moved from either doing just chicken rearing, and now they're doing commercial chicken rearing, or they're into poultry business properly, or they are into horticulture business properly. They moved from just doing kitchen garden, now they're doing something bigger. Are we able to tell?
I think we now, with the coming of the State Department, that's what you're looking at, because we have realized even when Uwezo Fund came in, it came in with a mind of encouraging the population to venture into income generating activities. So it was just you can do something to generate an income. But now we are trying to position them across the value chain, because even if it's farming, assuming we are farming kales, kales itself is a huge value chain. We can have the farmers who are doing at the downstream, who are doing the actual farming. We'll have those ones who are taking it to the market, but we can also have those ones who are exploring other markets, even for the global export, in terms of even drying, coming up with the technology to dry and package and even send it to the markets abroad. So there are massive opportunities there, but they're being underexploited. Most of agricultural value chain, what our people have been doing, they just focus on the raw material. There has been no value addition. So, and if you visited our villages, you'll see most of our beneficiaries. Someone has planted small farm there, and then at the same time carries it and goes sits there. The mama mboga sits at the market
Whole day.
at the market the whole day. So we are trying to see, and like for example the women's that I have visited so far, I'm telling them, why can't you just focus on farming? Our young people who do not have jobs, that the ones now will come and pick it up from the farm and line up on the roadside, you see, and sell it, and we'll agree what is the price, what is the farm gate price, and they will say, because them they can run after the matatus and do everything, so you don't need to be, you are the farmer and you pick it up from there. Again, you want to go and sit to the market. You can actually, your work can now just be, once you have a sustainable market and you have other players along that value chain, you yourself now can invest in doing 24/7 farming.
I'm insisted on this line of questioning peers because this is not new. Even before you joined the State Department, you've worked in this MSME field before. You know that this has been a conversation that's been there for long. Access to finance, better financial management, capacity building, so that people know how to just do the basic bookkeeping, looking at expanding opportunities. We have had a youth fund in this country since the Kibaki days.
Yes.
The Jubilee administration came in with the Uwezo Fund. It has disbursed money. We have the Hustler Fund. We have very many opportunities. We have even other government agencies in the Ministry of Trade and others that support MSMEs, okay?
Yes.
But here we are still raw on data.
I think the challenge I accept.
How do we harness all this information, that the wealth of knowledge that we have in government, and private sector to actually move the needle. Because it's like we're still talking about hand to mouth. Hustler fund, come, borrow, buy, go to a farm there, buy, go a shares, go sit on the sell. How do we move
But you
this?
see, the issue of data in this country, I think, is a challenge. And I think we have all accepted is a challenge, and we are working on it. For example, even the MSME data that you're talking about, there is only one agency which is authorized, to provide data, and that's Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. The data that we are citing is the 2016 data. And you and me know, from 2016, so many things have happened. So we've taken it, we had even Corona, we had the droughts.
2016 is almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, but now what we are doing, I have flagged that out. And we've started working on a comprehensive MSME survey, which will also encompass our commitments and the kind of intervention that we want to do in this sector, from capacity building, financial access, to market access, and even to investment. Because also there is one thing for our people to take their produces to the market, earn an income, but they need to know after I've earned, how do I build my social security, So what we are doing is that I've now worked out, I've secured funding as we speak, and beginning mid of this month, we've started conversation around the kind of parameters, and now with the coming of the Hustler Fund having given us a visibility, at least now we have credit visibility of more than 22 around 5 million Kenyans, we are able now to come up with key parameters that we'll be looking for. And I want to assure you and assure Kenyans, but before the end of this financial year, 30th June, we will have an MSME survey data report. And then what I'm also doing, I have realized, you see, the business is really dynamic. So many things keeps on changing, when you're doing business. So you need to be up to speed on what is happening in the local market, global market, and everything. And even to inform the kind of financial product that a particular business will be requiring. So what are we doing? We are establishing now an MSME lab at our sector, the ministry. Why do we need that MSME lab? So that we keep on administering the MSME best data. So, and then from that we can now pull it out in terms of the various analytics which you want. If we needed to understand, for example, these women in Rift Valley, which kind of crops are they for example, planting. And maybe we want now also to aggregate them so that they can now move to value addition. We may not have that data because, and I think the reason why this happened for a long time is because it's only this administration that actually acknowledge the need of having a state department or a government sector or agency that deals and focuses or coordinates the functions of MSME. The data which has been there is usually private. MSME function had been left to the private sector, so everybody does their thing. The government didn't have much presence. Even as they were coming up with these funds like the youth fund as you speak, they did not own data because basically the data is owned by
all over the place. Whole government
so that's what we are trying to correct now.
Okay, so I can understand that because obviously we know, PS, that the conducive environment is what government is after or should be after to make these small businesses then operate, because obviously we have the information that if that environment has been created, businesses have the opportunity to flourish.
Yes.
So now one must ask, when we talk about the role in supporting these MEs, when we also see that on the other side, the same government is in a push towards collection of taxes, the increment in the number and variety of taxes, many times upon these same small and medium enterprises that the same government is trying to support. How do you balance between the two, whereby in 2024, there are businesses, and they don't even hide it, who say that they won't use a certain till anymore because the taxes then that are being levied upon them now have become too much. And here on this side, there's supposed to be a government role of support for these same enterprises. How does that work? How is that balance created?
Yeah, but one thing before I respond to that we need to underscore is that our MSME sector is also being affected highly by informality of the MSMEs. Like out of the 10 million, according to the existing data of MSME, only less than 3 million MSMEs are formalized. So even when you talk about the taxation and who is doing this, you can imagine you cannot tax someone you cannot see. And you cannot come up with a tax incentive on somebody who you do not even have a basic KYC. They know your customer. You do not even know where they exist. So as we create the visibility and we now embark on formalization, it will help us try to understand the levels of MSME, even understanding how many are micros, how many are small, how many are medium. Because sometimes, I agree with you, even when it comes, as we complain about taxation, in the KRS mind, so far from the engagement we've had, they've been looking at the sector from the SME perspective. But we have a heavy micro who are informal. So now, and again, it points to lack of data that can differentiate who is at which level that requires which kind of intervention. So I think once we set up the way I'm trying to set up and make sure that we can have clear differentiation of the MSME sector, micros and small and medium enterprises, we can now argue out on tax incentives that can be able to encourage and promote the in terms of formalization, the micro MSMEs, so that the incentives attendant, the tax rates attendant to medium enterprise should not be the same rates attendant to micro enterprises. But all these things is about the data and creating that visibility. And that's why I think, and I want to believe what you're doing in the next couple of months or 1 year will now put us to a level where we're sitting down with KRA and saying, look, for these micro MSMEs, I think let's flex as we build them up. For the small MSMEs, this could be, because all of them have got different lifespan in a risk environment. The micro usually gets swept out immediately. And the small, some of these over time can build up themselves. And again, why do we need data? So that we can also scale them up. 98% of all businesses in Kenya are MSMEs. Only 2% are large enterprises. That situation explains why unemployment is the biggest challenge we have in this country. Because you imagine that large enterprises which can create sustainable and probably permanent jobs. But again now, in a situation where out of these 98%, we are saying majority of them are micro, meaning they're informal. They cannot create even sustainable jobs for themselves. People will do seasonal business, for example. If I'm a farmer, I've planted my kales, they will drive whichever income they will get. After they dry out of my farm, that is it. So I go back to a state of unemployment. So we want to segment them into those various levels. So at any given time, we see which kind of intervention do these...
You have a repository of data. All you need is collect it. Counties know who they are charging levies on a daily basis. They know who they're collecting those fees and licenses from.
But not all.
On a daily basis.
Not all.
The majority will tell you. I mean, we have an idea. If you talk about then cooperatives and SACCOs and cooperatives under your ministry, they can tell you how many cooperatives they've registered or they're dealing with small groupings that are chamas, that are sort of cooperatives, and just getting them to enroll will be something else. The Ministry of Trade has been dealing with trade for a long time, but also the Business Registration Service has businesses that are registered. So there's a lot of data, PS.
I will tell you something, Latif, on that. we can assume there is a lot of data. I agree. Everybody in small pockets spread out, but which needs to be now collated and have some sort of an integrated system where by click of a button you're able to tell who is there, who is doing this and this, and that's what you're doing. But also let me tell you, for example, the Hustler Fund, because of the element of credit, we've reached out to more than 22.5 million Kenyans. Now, we have transitioned a number of government services to eCitizen. You can go and find out how many Kenyans are onboarded. So we are running almost the same system, targeting 18 years and above. We are hitting, because there is element of credit, 22.5 million Kenyans or more than that, you can visualize them. But now when it comes to accessing government services, which are also very basic, because you see you need, the basic services, you can see the number is still around 10 million, 15 million or about there. It shows you we still have Kenyans. And someone was asking me, look at the voters. How many people registered as voters? You've really covered 22.5 million Kenyans. And whenever it comes to voter registration, is maybe half of that. So it tells you that some Kenyans who are invisible, and they come out as and when they need it. So through MSME, we are going to bring everybody in the racket.
So we wait for that data.
Them.
PS, we thank you for joining us today.
Excellent.
And we wish you all the best as you continue with this. We'll invite you again to get further information from you on this particular State Department. State Department for MSME Development, the Principal Secretary is Susan Mang'eni. She's been our guest. It's 8 a.m. news time.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.